Welcome to this Market Access Explainer. We're diving straight into a critical supply chain risk briefing tailored specifically for foreign manufacturers looking at India. Look, India is undeniably becoming one of the world's most important manufacturing and consumer markets. But for exporters, a growing market opportunity does not automatically guarantee market access. You might have an eager buyer or a product that meets top-tier international standards. Maybe it's already selling incredibly well in Europe, Japan, Korea, or the United States. You might even have a highly experienced Indian distributor. But honestly, none of that matters if your product gets stopped at the border. Today, we are going to unpack exactly what you must check before a single product leaves your factory.
Here is the compliance funnel we'll be walking through today. Number 1, the market access risk. Number 2, BIS versus QCO explained. Number 3, product scope and deadlines. Number 4, correct certification routes and testing. And finally, number 5, the pre-shipment checklist.
Let's start with Section 1, the market access risk. There is a stark contrast between what exporters assume and what Indian regulations actually demand. The assumption is usually something like, we have a local buyer and our product has US or EU certifications, so we're good to go, right? Well, here is your reality check. A product that is already sold globally can and absolutely will face severe customs blocks in India if it's covered by an Indian quality control order and lacks the mandatory BIS license. The first question you need to ask isn't, do we have a buyer? The very first question must always be, is this exact product covered by a QCO and what specific Indian standard applies? That right there is your foundational compliance signal.
Moving to Section 2, BIS versus QCO explained.
To really understand this compliance signal, we need to clarify the difference between India's national standards body and the government orders that enforce those standards. The difference is fundamental. BIS stands for the Bureau of Indian Standards. They are the national standards body, and their certification is, generally speaking, voluntary. However, a QCO, a quality control order, is a directive from the central government that makes compliance with a specified Indian standard absolutely compulsory for designated products. So the crucial takeaway here is that once a product is brought under a QCO, getting that certification and the standard mark is no longer optional, it's mandatory. You can't just ask, does BIS exist for our industry? You have to know if a specific QCO has been activated for your specific product.
Which brings us to the operational reality. Generic questions like, does our company need BIS, are fundamentally flawed. BIS obligations aren't usually linked to a company name. They are linked to the product, the standard, and the manufacturing location. Foreign manufacturers must build a precise product-by-product matrix, and relying on just an HS code, that is a major pitfall. QC's scope is defined through detailed product descriptions and referenced Indian standards. A slightly different voltage, material, or use case might bring a similar-looking product right into the scope of a QCO. You have to review the customs classification, the technical specifications, and the exact wording of the QCO all together. Classification must always precede the certification application. Now for Section 3, product scope and deadlines. Let's map this out using a major upcoming regulatory signal. For household, commercial, and similar electrical appliances, BIS lists a quality control order linked to IS 302 Part 1 2024, which, by the way, aligns with IEC 60335-1 2020. The current official listings identify October 1, 2026 as the implementation date for a broad category of these appliances within stated voltage limits. But look closely at the steps preceding that date. You have document preparation, factory assessment, sample testing, and potential corrective actions. I want to be highly authoritative on this point. October 1, 2026 is the finish line. It is the date by which your required compliance must already be fully operational. It is absolutely not the date to start your review. If you wait until September to begin this process, your supply chain is going to be disrupted. And here is a crucial accuracy guardrail. Please don't assume that IS 302 Part 1 alone is some magic bullet for every single appliance, or that every product follows one identical path. You must verify whether a general safety standard, a product-specific Part 2 standard, or another Indian standard applies to your exact model. Always verify the latest QCO, any transition orders, precise exemptions, and current BIS listings immediately before production and shipment. The regulatory landscape can shift, and your compliance matrix needs to stay completely current.
Let's look at Section 4, correct certification routes and testing. Now that we understand the scope and the deadlines, how do foreign manufacturers actually obtain this certification and prepare their factories? Well, for many products manufactured outside India, BIS operates a specific pathway called the Foreign Manufacturers Certification Scheme, or FMCS. Operating under the BIS Act 2016, this is exactly how a foreign factory obtains a license to use the standard mark, but you have to be precise. FMCS is generally distinct from the CRS, the Compulsory Registration Scheme, which is typically used for notified electronics and information technology goods under MITI. Before you prepare a single document, you must confirm your route. Are you under Scheme I, commonly associated with the ISI mark, or are you under the Compulsory Registration Scheme, Scheme X, or another route? Choosing the wrong pathway wastes precious months and leaves you with test reports and documentation that are completely invalid for your actual application.
If you are applying under FMCS, you're going to encounter the term AIR, Authorized Indian Representative. Nominating an AR is a mandatory requirement. But please do not misunderstand their role. An AIR is your local nominee. They do not replace the manufacturer's own conformity responsibilities. The foreign manufacturer still bears the total burden of demonstrating conformity at the factory level. You simply cannot outsource your manufacturing compliance to your local representative.
So how exactly do you demonstrate that factory capability? You need to prepare what we call the 5 evidence blocks. First, legal and factory documents. Second, a precise product-to-standard mapping. Third, comprehensive manufacturing process and quality control records. Fourth, and this one is often the critical path, testing facilities, equipment calibration, and personnel competence. Finally, Block 5, marking, labeling, and control of the standard mark. BIS expects you to have in-house arrangements and equipment for testing according to the applicable standard. And remember, a separate application is required for each manufacturing location and each standard. One license does not automatically blanket your entire corporate group. Because these requirements are so stringent, delegating the entire compliance risk to an Indian buyer is a massive strategic mistake. Yes, an importer absolutely helps with market entry, but you, the exporter, control the product design, the bill of materials, and the factory quality system. To manage this properly, you need an optimal shared responsibility model. Headquarters owns the product and regulatory decisions. The factory owns manufacturing conformity and testing. The AAR manages the required local representation. And the importer confirms the shipments and market documentation. This division of labor should be clearly written into your operational plans, not just assumed.
Finally, Section 5, the pre-shipment checklist.
This is the definitive gate that every export manager, compliance team, and supply chain director must clear before booking a shipment to India. Here are the 7 gates you must pass. 1. Is the exact product covered by a current or upcoming QCO? 2. Which specific Indian standard and certification scheme apply? 3. What is the implementation date and are there valid exemptions? 4. Which factory will manufacture the product and is that specific site's application complete? 5. Has an eligible AIR been appointed? 6. Are the factory testing, assessment, and marking protocols completely ready? And 7. Can the license and standard mark requirements be officially verified before the shipment is released? If your answer to any one of these 7 questions is uncertain, you must place the shipment on compliance review immediately, before production, and certainly before booking freight, to avoid disastrous supply chain disruptions.
I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. BIS and QCO compliance must be treated as a comprehensive market access project, not just a final shipping document you scramble for at the 11th hour. Check the product, check the standard, check the factory, and secure the route before a regulatory date becomes a missed supply chain deadline. eXGateAI tracks the regulatory signals that can change market access, shipment timing, and supply chain decisions. eXGateAI is a growth partner for small and mid-sized businesses. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and I hope you now feel empowered to navigate these requirements with total confidence.